Hi guys, good afternoon and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I am your host Eddie, and in today's video I will be doing my episode review and recap for the third episode of Zoo, titled The Silence of the Cicadas. Now before I proceed, I must go on to warn you that this review will be full of spoilers from the most recent episode of Zoo, so if you are not caught up on the most recent episode of Zoo, or if you have not if you're behind a couple episodes, I would not recommend continuing to watch or listen to this video, so you have been warned. That being said, I really like where it's going so far. You know, they're really starting to, pick up the pace, I think. Or, you know, some people may disagree with me, but for me personally, it feels like to me that they're really starting to build up. Like, every episode continues to build up, just like how it happens in the graphic novel. So just to give you a quick recap, Abraham and Jackson go to Tokyo to find the rest of, sorry, did I say Abraham and Jackson? Yeah. Abraham and Jackson go to Tokyo to find the rest of Jackson's father's research that could hopefully point them into some clue as to what is causing this phenomena that's happening all over the world. And, of course, Chloe was recruited by the French Secret Service guy, Gascard, I believe his name is. She is recruited by him to help him investigate other animal attacks. And Mitch and Jamie have flown down to Louisiana to where Jamie's old hometown is, where the Rind Corporation, the Rind Chemical Company, originally allegedly destroyed a whole town, including Jamie's mother, who died of some kind of cancer poisoning or a cancer-like sickness. And they go down there because they have a meeting with a senator who's been actively fighting the Rind Chemical Company, and she and Mitch want to present their evidence regarding the lions' autopsies and how they're going to try to connect that to the Rind Corporation's usage of tainted meat, so to speak. So that's where all of our characters are at right now. So it's, of course, this episode confirms the first opening scene is Gascard and Chloe walk down to the coroner's office, and he pays off the coroner. And I believe they're still in Slovenia, so this isn't Paris. They're in Slovenia, and sure enough, the poor adopted father of the orphan from the last episode, the guy who was surrounded, last we saw him, he was surrounded by a pack of wild dogs in some abandoned alleyway. Sure enough, he's dead, lying there in the slab, and he's a confirmed victim of a dog attack or a dog mutilation. So he's dead, along with all of the other bodies that they recovered from that alleyway. And he briefs Chloe, saying that these attacks happened over a week period, like a few times at a week, over a course of a couple weeks, because these bodies were not found until recently. So, you know, that being said, you know, Chloe begins to put together a theory or a hypothesis as to what caused these dogs, at least, to intentionally lure people to this alleyway and then murder them. And she uses the word murder, just like Jackson's mom did after she looked over and inspected the bodies of the lion victims in Botswana. They used the term murder to describe the victims. Not mauling, not animal attack victim, but murder. So something about the bodies is making them stand out from previous animal attack victims. So Chloe and the guy continue to investigate, and he convinces her that she's the only one who can help him. And it turns out, as she says, she's not actually a field agent, to my surprise. She's more like an analyst, an intelligence analyst, kind of like Jack Ryan in the Jack Ryan movies. You know, like he is for the CIA, that's what she is for the French Secret Service, an analyst. But the Gascard, the guy with her, says that he needs her help because she experienced and witnessed this phenomena firsthand when she was in Botswana, when she was attacked by the all-male lion pride. That's why he needs her. So she reluctantly agrees, and so now they're on the trail of these dog attacks and continue to investigate. Abraham and Jackson are in Tokyo. They locate Jackson's father's address, and they find a Japanese woman living there. And it turns out it is Jackson's father's second wife. And Jackson was very surprised and apologetic to the woman, saying, "I didn't know my dad had remarried." So she explains to them how she had stuck with Robert, Jackson's father, towards the end of his life, even though towards the end of his life, he kept going on and on about his ranting and raving about how animals will eventually snap and turn against the entire human race. but she reveals to him that the information they're seeking is not in the apartment, but it's actually at a secluded location outside of Tokyo. So she, Abraham, and Jackson and a pilot take a small charter plane and fly out to this island, which is located not too far from Fukushima. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but it's basically where they're referencing the real-life events that happened, the 2011 earthquake, which devastated a lot of Japan, and that's where a lot of nuclear material was leaked into the environment after the initial earthquake. But she explains that Jackson's father moved his lab and all of his research and work out there to this secluded area so nobody would come bothering him or come looking for him. But as they're approaching the island, they're suddenly attacked and swarmed by this flock of bats, like hundreds and hundreds of bats intentionally come at the plane, and they cause the plane to go down. We don't see the initial crash. It cuts to commercial. We come back. Sure enough, they've landed in the water just near the island. The pilot is dead. Abraham and Jackson are both alive. They make it to shore with the Japanese woman's body, and unfortunately, they cannot revive her. She is gone. They get there, they find the lab, but what's interesting is that they find these two horses, both of whom have had their eyes removed, like surgically removed. And as creepy as it looks, the animals are relatively peaceful, probably because they can't see the humans, although they could probably sense and detect them since Jackson pet one of them, but the second one appeared, and then they both just left Abraham and Jackson alone at this lab. So that's what's happening in Tokyo. Cut back to another location. We are in Biloxi, Mississippi, and there's a inmate there who's on death row, and he is scheduled to be executed the next day. And I guess his name is Evan Lee Hartley, and he's a religious, Bible-quoting, probably born-again Christian who became a born-again Christian in prison. I mean, at least that's what's implied. He's confronted with a family member of the man he murdered. He killed this woman's husband while the husband and his friends were out on a hunting party, and this guy, the inmate, killed the husband, and the others got away. But he was caught and convicted of murder, and now he faces execution by injection. And, they both try to make peace, although his motives for wanting to make peace with the widow at the suggestion of the warden is wholly inspired by a sudden appearance by a wolf that he sees outside of the warden's office in the prison yard. Because at first he refuses to speak to the widow, but then he's like, yeah, on second thought, let's do that. I think it would be good to die with a clear conscience, or something like that, not taking his eyes on the wolf that nobody else seems to notice but him. So it makes you wonder if he's hallucinating the wolf or it's really out there. And it's entirely possible that it is out there and nobody else for some reason hasn't noticed it except him. Or maybe he was just imagining that one wolf in that particular instance. I'll come back to that in a few seconds. But so he's scheduled to be put to death. We've been introduced to him. So obviously this guy is going to be around for the next couple of episodes, if not the rest of the series or season. He's a bad guy, so it's hard to tell with bad guys how long they'll stay on the show for. So Abraham and Jackson start going through Robert's lab, and they find all of this archived footage showing how the horses had become hyper aggressive, and one of them actually bit off the fingers of one of Robert's assistants, because in the footage he's narrating, he's like, this particular horse attacked and traumatized my assistant who lost 2 fingers. And his theory was, they go back to the defiant pupil theory, was that that's what triggered it, and that might have been his reasoning for removing the horse's eyes. And then Abraham points out to Jackson, well, he can't possibly blind every single animal in the world. And Jackson's like, yeah, I agree with that. But then Jackson brings up a really interesting point. Jackson comes up with his own theory saying, what if my dad was saying, because of the defiant pupil, it actually causes animals to physically change how they see and view the world around them. Friends become enemies, and, their senses change. Like, what if there's something that's physically affecting them, at least in their eyes, that's causing them to become hyper-aggressive all of a sudden? And it's an interesting theory, but then when they look at their miniature Geiger counter, they realize that the radiation levels are getting dangerously high. But fortunately, a rescue chopper has been summoned thanks to the doomed pilot who sent out an SOS beacon before they crashed. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. He sent out an SOS beacon, so a helicopter swoops in, picks up Abraham and Jackson, who come running out of the forest, and they're greeted by none other than Gascard, the French Secret Service guy who recruited Chloe to help him investigate animal attacks. And he's like, we don't have time to explain, let's go, s'il vous plaît. So they're like, okay, well, let's go, we have to get out of here, the radiation is getting bad. And so... and then in Louisiana, shockingly, what's interesting about this episode, it has quite a few references to the graphic novel. I immediately recognize the bat attack. That is taken directly from the graphic novel. There's this great scene where Jackson and a few other characters are indeed on a big passenger plane, not one of those tiny private planes, but like a big airline plane, and bats just swarm the entire plane, but fortunately the plane manages to survive the flock of bats, and it continues on its present course, but other planes around them actually go down and crash because of the bat attack. So that's taken from the graphic novel, and that was very cool to see on the show. And then something else that was taken, the journalist Jamie Campbell, the one who was working on the LA Telegraph before she was fired, the one who's now working with the zoo pathologist Mitch, her role in the show is actually much closer to Jackson's role in the graphic novel. In the graphic novel, he's the one who's acting like the paranoid conspiracy theory guy about animals taking over the planet and attacking people. And he actually does arrange a meeting with an important senator, but then the senator cancels on him at the last minute when the senator realizes that Jackson is probably a crackpot. But in the show, it's Jamie who's acting more like a paranoid conspiracy theorist type of person who believes that the Rind Chemical Company is behind at least the lion maulings and the unprovoked lion attacks in Los Angeles because of the tainted meat and the tainted food supply that the company allegedly has and is supplying to the LA Zoo. And but she actually, unlike the graphic novel, she manages to keep her meeting with the senator, who actually hears her out because she grew up in that town, and she and the senator, right when the first Rind Chemical accident happened, well, not really an accident, but when a lot of people, including Jamie's mom, got sick and died eventually, that's what caused them to launch investigations against Rind. But the senator tells her that, her efforts would be futile, and, he and his committee have launched hundreds of investigations, and the Rind Company keeps stonewalling them, and for every lawyer the senator and his people come up with, the Rind Company has a million other lawyers. So Jamie and Mitch are basically left with nothing. Like, they're given the boots. Like, they flew all the way down there to Louisiana, and even Mitch, under false pretenses, since Jamie originally told him that this was being paid for and funded by the LA Telegraph, but it's not, because she was actually fired, kicked out of her apartment, and has no more money. And of course, she reveals that to Mitch right as her credit card gets ejected at the airport when they try to rent a car, I believe. But, they still go to their meeting with the senator. He kind of blows them off. He is pretty sorry about it. And there's this great line Mitch throws at him while he's standing in the doorway before he leaves. He's like, I did a thesis or report back in college where I talked about people who have, taxidermists. He says something about comparing the sizes of one's penis to an animal's head on their wall in terms of taxidermy, and he's like, my condolences to your wife. I was like, where the hell did that come from? That was funny, but what the hell? But I liked it. And then as they're drinking away, at least Jamie is kind of drinking away her misery and her disappointment in the bar, Mitch is encouraging her to not give up, because even though he was a little annoyed and mad with her for lying to him, I think he was impressed by her spirit and her gall for not giving up. He's trying to cheer her up, but then she kind of blows him off and goes to call her uncle so she can crash on his couch since he still lives there in Louisiana. But then Mitch is approached by, again, Gascard. And it seems Gascard is recruiting all of our main characters to join him. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. So right around the same time, Gascard brings Mitch and Jamie to meet Abraham and Jackson. And I believe they are all... In Tokyo, yes, they're all in Tokyo. They bring them to this conference room, and then right as this is happening, at the exact same time, back in the United States, Biloxi, Mississippi, Evan Lee is getting ready for his execution, and the widow of the man he murdered is leaving the prison, and the warden walks her out trying to cheer her up and saying, "Thank you for coming down." As she drives away, it reveals that there was a wolf hiding behind her car, and the warden is standing outside the prison. And he kind of looks confused at first because the wolf is just sitting there growling, but then it roars, charges him, and the warden backs up into the perimeter fence, and the wolf lunges on him and goes for his throat, and then they both start wrangling on the ground with each other. There's a guard on the other side of the fence who pushes open the perimeter fence, but as if on cue, the rest of the wolf pack attacks, and they swarm the prison. And it looks like there's about 5 or 6 more wolves, and including the wolf that killed the warden, 7 wolves. 7 or 8 wolves now are like all over the prison. And it really takes the prison guards by surprise. The prison goes into lockdown mode. But what happens is that these wolves spread out throughout the prison, and one of them attacks an inmate chef in the kitchen, and when it lunges at him, the inmate throws some kind of cooking oil or whatever, some kind of cooking oil or liquid, a flammable liquid, onto the stove, and it causes the stove to go woof, and then the prison kitchen catches fire, triggering the fire alarm system. And meanwhile, Evan, the creepy inmate from before, is standing outside the prison enjoying one last glimpse and breath of fresh air before his execution, but he hears all this commotion going on behind him, and he can't really go anywhere since he's in a fenced-in area of the prison yard. And the wolves can't get at him because they're all inside, but he is looking at one dead straight in the eye that's standing right in front of him on the other side of the perimeter fence. And he kind of gives it a confused look like, what exactly is going on? And then the prison lockdown eventually there's like a little power surge, and of course it causes the inmates' cell doors to open, and inmates start trying to escape, but most of them don't make it very far because the wolves immediately attack them and go for their throats like they did to the warden outside. So some of the inmates are running around, and the prison guards, most of them have made it to safety, even though a few of them were eaten by the wolves, or killed by the wolves, excuse me. And then while all of this is happening, Cascard and what I presume is his boss or some top French Secret Service official finally explain to our 4 main characters that they have all been brought here because they are all pursuing leads and investigating suspicious animal activity all over the world. They make mention of the lion attacks in Botswana and LA. They mention the dog pack killings in Slovenia. They mention, and then Jackson brings up the bats attacking the plane while he and Abraham were in the plane right there in Tokyo. And then Gascard shows a quick montage of footage from all over the world of other isolated incidents of hyper-aggressive animal attacks, like bears killing tourists in Germany, rhinos killing tourists in Africa, etc., etc. And so finally he reveals to them that something is indeed happening out there, and I want all of you to figure out what it is before it's too late. And he's like, let me introduce you to the team leader. And sure enough, it's Chloe. And Chloe and Jackson recognize each other and go, ah, nice to see you again. And so now all of our main characters have finally come together and will hopefully stay together for the rest of the season, and hopefully most of them will survive this first season and then will go on living for the rest of the series. And so now all of our main characters are together, and they can finally begin their collaborative efforts of figuring out what the hell is going on with the animal kingdom. But in my personal opinion, guys, I think it is too late. It's way too late, because these animal attacks have already been happening now for the past, I think it's supposed to have been the past 3 weeks, and if not 3 weeks, maybe the past month or month and a half since this all began at the LA Zoo. So I'd say, it was a great episode overall. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of these characters will interact and work together, and what kind of relationships they'll build and form with each other. And then I'm also curious to see what's going to happen with our death row inmate, Evan Lee, who's most likely going to escape that prison somehow, thanks to the chaos that the wolf pack created. And also, what triggered the wolves to attack a prison of all places in the first place? If they go into that or not, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm excited, guys. I like where the show is heading so far, and as a fan of the graphic novel, it is staying pretty damn faithful to how the story unfolds in the graphic novel. So Good job, CBS, and good job, cast and crew of Zoo. Keep it up. You guys are doing great. Well, thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and I hope you enjoyed the episode as well. I thought it was very, very entertaining, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season of Zoo. And I believe we have 10 more episodes left. Yep, and you can catch it every Tuesday night on CBS, and it's a great watch. It's a lot of fun. And overall, thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. I hope you are enjoying this channel as much as I enjoy producing and creating it. And please hit that subscribe button and leave your thoughts, comments, and opinions down below. Let's try to be respectful of one another's opinions. What do you guys like about this show? What don't you like about this show? Are there parts of it you would change, or are there characters that you like or don't like? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. This is all about, you know, communicating with you guys, so I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts and opinions. And once again, you guys, until next time, may the Force be with you.